Welcome back to the Mid Podcast, the only wrestling podcast brave enough to ask the important questions like how many super kicks are too many super kicks? Did AEW really hold a wrestling show inside a golf arena? Because Tony Khan looked at Top Golf and said, what if Darby Allin bled there? Today we're breaking down WWE Backlash 2026, AEW's bizarrely glorious Fairway to Hell, and the fallout from episode of Raw from May 11th. So, I need you to grab your energy drinks, your replica belts, and your emotionally complicated feelings about Roman Reigns somehow still being champion in the year 2026. We're going to start with WWE Backlash. It honestly felt like WWE collectively looked at WrestleMania 42 reviews and said, okay, what if we actually wrestled this time? And somehow it worked a little. The show had some strong wrestling, some storytelling, Trick Williams becoming more over than half of the roster combined, and Jacob Fatu trying to murder everyone within a 50-foot radius. This was one of those WWE shows where Triple H clearly drank 3 black coffees and said, are we doing cinema tonight? And for the most part, maybe? In no particular order, we're going to look at the matches. And I'm going to start with the World Heavyweight Championship match featuring Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu. Roman Reigns defeated Jacob, felt less like a wrestling match and more like Thanksgiving dinner if everyone at the table had unresolved trauma and access to steel steps. Jacob Fatu continued to wrestle like someone released from containment. This man doesn't walk to the ring, he storms to the ring like he heard somebody disrespecting Samoa Joe online. Roman came in with final boss energy, although we still have no Rock. Jacob wrestled this match like he was trying to unlock a hidden Mortal Kombat character. Every near fall felt gigantic, and honestly, WWE deserves credit because they made Jacob feel dangerous without immediately beating Roman. That is hard to do, because usually WWE books monsters in one of two ways. They either destroy everyone, or they lose one match and suddenly start feuding with The Miz on main event. Thankfully, Jacob survived the dreaded monster nerf, and Roman retaining did make sense, although was kind of hoping Fatu would win. But the post-match assault was pretty decent. We had Jacob snapping and attacking Roman, officials, producers, referees, security guards, probably a guy selling pretzels in section 114. That was money. It made him feel terrifying. However, I do have a criticism. Roman's matches still occasionally suffer from the dramatic pause syndrome. There are moments where everyone just lays there dramatically while the crowd chants and Michael Cole sounds like he's narrating the fall of the Roman Empire. At one point, I think Roman was down for so long, I actually had time to pay my electric bill. Match grade? I'd give it a B-. Jacob Fatu's aura grade? S tier. Now we have Braun versus Seth. So basically the match was, what if Goldberg could actually wrestle for 20 minutes? The speed, the intensity, the fact that he moves like a linebacker who accidentally got trapped in wrestling. Meanwhile, Seth continues to be WWE's greatest employee. Needs someone to lose and make a younger guy look good? Yeah, we're calling Seth. Need someone to wear an outfit that looks like a Las Vegas magician fighting? Yeah, we're calling Seth. Need someone to scream laugh during a promo while dressed like a couch from 2087? Yeah, I'm probably still calling Seth. This match was probably the best match on the card. That's saying something because you only had 4 matches anyway. Braun winning was the right call, and honestly, it felt like a passing of the torch moment. However, Seth's character currently feels like it's held together by pure charisma and expensive sunglasses. There are times where I generally do not know if he's a heel, a face, or just a guy that escaped from Eurovision. Still excellent, still my match of the night. So I would give it probably an A minus. Now we have the United States Championship featuring our champion Trick Williams and Sami Zayn. This match proved one thing. Trick, well, he's over like Rover. Not internet over, not people online saying he's underrated over, but like real over. The crowd chanting whoop that trick now sounds like a stadium wide religious experience. Sami Zayn played the perfect veteran where he sold for Trick like he was trying to personally build WWE's next main eventer brick by brick. And of course, Trick delivered. The charisma is ridiculous, his confidence is there, and the presentation feels huge. And perhaps most importantly, he looks cool. That sounds simple, but wrestling has spent the last decade giving us people who feel like theater kids going on anime monologues. Talking to you, Kenny Omega. Trick does kind of feel like a star. You don't have that many stars in WWE at the moment, so Trick feeling like a star? Could he be the future star? Maybe. However, I still think Trick occasionally rushes his transitions during longer matches. There are moments where the pacing gets a little awkward. But that's just me nitpicking. This was a breakout performance for Trick, so I will give this match a B. Oh my god, they actually put a women's match on. We have Io Sky versus Asuka. This was art, and it was beautiful art. These two went out there and occasionally had one of the best women's matches WWE has done in years, and that is saying a lot for me who hates women's wrestling. The pacing, the counters, the emotion, the striking, the storytelling, it all fit this match. Meanwhile, the audience spent the first 5 minutes emotionally processing the possibility that Asuka might actually be nearing the end of her WWE run. And then they started wrestling, they trying to settle a blood feud in an anime finale. Io winning was the right call, but the post-match respect segment, that's what got the people. My one nitpick is WWE still refuses to constantly give women's feuds the same week to week depth as the men. And yes, I am saying that. Because imagine if this rivalry had gotten 8 weeks of full fleshed out storytelling and not cut because you let one of the main characters go. However, it was still a decent match. And for a women's match, I'll give it a B minus. Next, we have the comedy segment of the show, which some people liked, some people didn't. We have Danhausen and his mystery partner, which turned out to be Mini Danhausen, versus The Miz and Kit Wilson. This match felt like Triple H spun a wheel backstage and said, "Where the wheel lands, no one knows. Sports entertainment nonsense. Hey, sounds good to me, brother." Not every match needs to be like an Omega versus Okada. Comedy in wrestling is good. Sometimes you do need some chaos. And sometimes you need a mini, tiny Danhausen? Did I just say that? Sometimes you need the Miz looking spiritually exhausted while being cursed by a goblin and not the Green Goblin. This was dumb, but it was okay. Kit still continues to feel like the generic create a wrestler number 1550. I don't make the rules, sorry, but for what it was, I give this match a C minus. My final thoughts on Backlash. Was WWE trying to rebuild momentum after WrestleMania while trying to set up the future? You're right. Although Braun Breaker does feel inevitable, Jacob is terrifying. Trick could be a megastar. Io continues to quietly be one of the best female wrestlers on earth. And we somehow get John Cena announce a weird fan vote tournament thing that sounds either revolutionary or probably one of the worst ideas in wrestling history. And that is no middle ground. Overall, Backlash, you get a D. So let's move on to Fairway to Hell. AEW held a wrestling show in a golf venue. Okay, give it up. Doing quirky wrestling events in weird spots? Not a bad idea. Could we see one in Alcatraz? That would be cool. I need everyone to understand how objectively insane that sentence was. Okay, so TK saw an indoor golf complex and thought, you know what this needs? Pac screaming. Somehow, it works. Fairway to Hell felt like one of those forever dream wrestling concepts you create in universe mode at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. Yet AEW leaned all the way into the weirdness. The visuals were bizarre, atmosphere was very unique, and the whole thing felt like wrestling produced by people who drink 6 Monster Energy drinks and watch Nitro clips all afternoon, which honestly, that's probably AEW's strongest identity. We have the World Championship match with Darby Allin and Pac. It was exactly what one would expect. Violence, pain, British anger, Darby trying to shorten his own lifespan, which he does every match. We have Pac wrestles every match like he's really furious that someone had made him leave his bat cave. Darby continues to treat gravity like it's a personal enemy. There was a point where Darby launched himself so recklessly, I think insurance companies across America collectively gasped and said, are we really insuring this dude? The match, it ruled. Pac remains one of the most consistent, excellent wrestlers in the world, and Darby as champion somehow works, even though everybody online bitches about it, because he feels permanently 1 second away from dying. That creates drama. One nitpick, AEW still has a tendency to speed run emotional moments. Things happen, then immediately another thing happens. Then we have Excalibur scream 6 match announcements at you like he's an auctioneer possessed by a demon. Let the moments land. It's okay to let things breathe. However, the match was still awesome, so it gets a grade of an A. Jack Perry versus Mark Davis. Jack Perry's evolution from Jungle Boy into a guy who definitely owns at least 3 expensive jackets has been fascinating. The man went from a cosplay Tarzan to emotionally unavailable nightclub manager. Meanwhile, Mark Davis wrestles like somebody gave a refrigerator sentence. The contrast, it actually works. And honestly, Mark Davis winning the title was a good call. AEW desperately needs fresh champions and different faces elevated. My one nitpick, Perry still occasionally feels like he's trying hard to look cool. Like the wrestling equivalent of a guy leaning against a wall at a party while checking if people notice him leaning against the wall. AKA Jack Perry, you are not your dad, Luke Perry, leaning against the wall looking cool. It was a decent match. It gets a B+. Let's talk about the golf visuals. Because the show looked like Monday Nitro meets the PGA, at one point I expected Tony Schiavone to say, and now let's send it over to hole number 7, where Jon Moxley is bleeding near the sand trap. The setup was weird, but weird in a memorable way. And wrestling needs memorable, because too many modern shows, they all look the same. Fairway to Hell at least had personality. Even if that personality was rich dads accidentally wandering into a lucha brawl. My overall thoughts on Fairway to Hell: show was chaotic. I love chaos. Weird, experimental, and very AEW, which means some people absolutely loved it and fan drones absolutely hated it. Personally, I respect the insanity. AEW at its best feels unpredictable, and Fairway to Hell absolutely felt unpredictable. Overall, I'll give it a B. Oh. Now, we have to go to Monday Night Raw, which was held on May 11th. Do I have to? Yes, I have to. So we had basically 3 hours of, we know Jacob Fatu is probably going to kill somebody. But does that make for compelling television? Not really. Did the show have strong momentum coming out of Backlash? Maybe. And unlike some post PLE episodes, did it feel important? A little, maybe. So we end the show with Roman Reigns' acknowledgement ceremony. And nothing says humility like hosting your own acknowledgement ceremony. Talk about an egomaniac. Maybe he needs to join Ethan Page. Roman Reigns continues to carry himself like a mob boss who also sells limited edition sneakers. The Usos come out, the crowd was like, "Yay, Roman!" Roman, with his smug look, looked like he couldn't take a dump. And then Jacob Fatu arrived, and the world's angriest tornado hit the ring. Jacob destroyed Roman and the Usos, instantly making him feel bigger than he did at Backlash. The visual of him standing tall while chaos unfolded around him was pretty good. This is the most alive the Bloodline story has felt in a while. However, the Bloodline saga occasionally feels like a Netflix series that should have ended about 4 seasons ago, but keeps getting renewed because the ratings are still huge. But Jacob adds fresh energy. And honestly, the story might have needed fresh energy. I'll give the segment a B-. We have Javon Evans versus Rusev. Holy shit, Rusev back on your screen? I guess he got tired of catering. Javon Evans moves like somebody turned the game speed to 1.5. His athleticism? Absurd. Meanwhile, Rusev looks like he spent his free time carrying tree trunks competitively. I mean, is there a lot to do in Bulgaria? Don't know. The clash of styles worked surprisingly well, and Javon getting meaningful offense while still making Rusev feel dangerous was, oh my God, am I going to say it? Am I going to say it? Yes, it was actually smart booking. However, WWE desperately needs to stop introducing cool younger wrestlers and immediately making commentary compare them to Rey Mysterio. Can people just be themselves? However, I will give the match a C. So the week before, we had no women's match on Raw, and I did a story and a podcast on where's the outrage, because there was really none, because you Fed drones don't really care unless it's AEW. You holler, I want women's wrestling. There was none last week, but there was not one peep out of you motherfuckers because y'all just sat on your hands. Well, tonight we get Sol Ruka, who is the latest call-up from NXT, versus Io Sky. So Sol Ruka is basically if TikTok highlight reel became a wrestler. Every match she does at least one move that causes social media to collectively lose its mind. So basically, she fits WWE because she is a moment. Nothing more, nothing less. So they put her in there with Io Sky. Could that be a cheat code? Probably not. Io continues to wrestle at a level where she could probably have a good match with a broomstick, a traffic cone, a blow-up doll, an invisible person, or pretty much any female wrestler on the roster. However, Raw does still struggle with giving the women enough consistent storyline focus. You'll get a great match, And then we go to a 10-minute Judgment Day segment involving Dom making facial expressions like a raccoon stealing food and the annoying Liv Morgan's voice and that terrible, terrible laugh. It is time for Judgment Day to disband. We need priorities, people. Although priorities is probably not something that WWE understands. But for a women's match, I'll give it a B minus. Then we have the newest star, Oba Femi, who was put over by Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Is Oba terrifying? Maybe. He has an open challenge. But Adam Pearce cancels the open challenge because no one wants to wrestle the dude who carries himself like a comic book villain. The dude who looks like he could squash you with 2 fingers. And every promo he does, well, he sounds like he's about to invade a neighboring kingdom. Medieval vibes. I could dig that. And WWE clearly understands they have something special. Maybe that's why he gets a 10-minute entrance. However, I feel WWE will do its usual shit and overscript him. Just let him speak naturally, because half of his aura comes from sounding like he genuinely believes he can throw another human through a wall and then through another wall. So he grabs Los Garzas and beats the shit out of them. They didn't ask for that. And they got squashed by Oba Femi. So what's next for them? I mean, they're a tag team, and you could put them in the tag team. Oh, WWE doesn't have a tag team division anymore. My bad. Best thing, hopefully we see Las Garza on the release form next time, and they can go somewhere and actually wrestle. Because what they're doing now, sitting and catering. So now we have Judgment Day drama. Oh, yay. Like, we all need more Judgment Day on our wrestling show on Monday nights. No, not really. I could do without. I promise I really could do without. However, they do continue to operate like the world's gothiest human resources violation. Dom somehow remains one of the funniest heels in wrestling simply because his existence irritates everybody. That does take some talent. So you have to give it to Dom. And somehow every segment involving Dom feels like a live action Reddit thread. This group desperately needs some direction again. If not, just break them up and let them go on their own. I mean, we do have a hint of distension between Roxanne and Liv. Could Roxanne be your next world champion in the women's division? Because at this moment, Liv really has no opponent. Unless you put Io Sky in there, and she's about the only decent women's wrestler who could carry that title. However, it does feel like WWE keeps them together because everyone already owns their merch graphics. And you know they can't lose money. My final thoughts on Raw. So did Raw do what a post pay-per-view show should do? Little bit. Did it advance some stories? It did with Jacob and Roman. Did it elevate some stars? Maybe. Did it create chaos in WWE? Now, them are 2 words you never put together. Did it make next week feel like I need to watch it? Fuck no. Although Jacob does feel like the breakout guy coming out of Backlash, Braun Breaker does feel inevitable like Thanos. Trick keeps getting loud reactions. But I am 50% sure they might be pumped in noise. Oba looks like some terrifying African king. And WWE's younger generation is kind of getting a push. We'll have to wait and see about that one. So, could you say for the first time in a while, WWE generally feels like it's transitioning toward the future? Yeah, right. I have a bridge, oceanfront property in Oklahoma I would sell you. Um, you still have Roman. You still have Cena making announcements about some stupid tournament. And you still have The Miz, who is comedy, and every new person has to have a program with The Miz to prove their worth in WWE. And how The Miz has survived all these roster cuts, only time knows. But anyway, let's not get carried away. Raw still sucked. And guess what? Our time has come to an end. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Mid Podcast. WWE Backlash under-delivered, over-delivered, middle-delivered, mid-delivered. AEW held a wrestling in a golf simulator dimension. Pretty cool. Raw gave us Jacob Fatu violence yet again. And wrestling remains the only form of entertainment where a tiny cursed goblin can share a card with an emotionally devastating story. Honestly, I guess that's why we love it. I don't know. Make sure you like and subscribe, leave a review, go argue with strangers online about match ratings, and remember, stay bold, stay average, stay mid. See you guys next time.